In this video, I'm going to take you through and actually teach you the most effective, accurate and guaranteed way you can drop body fat through dieting whilst maintaining all your muscle mass. It's a very simple process, and this is exactly what I do for myself when I'm dieting for a shoot or a video recording, and this is the exact process I take all my clients through when they want to drop body fat as well. So what you need to do to start with is come up with a diet that is going to fit into your life, be realistic for you, and you need to do on a daily basis. And most importantly, you want this original diet to contain as much food as possible. That is correct, you heard correctly. When you start a cut or decide you want to start dropping fat, you need to start on a good amount of food. You want lots of good quality carbs. When you're dieting to drop fat, there is no one diet that's going to work for you. It's impossible. You need to make constant changes to your diet on a weekly to fortnightly basis if you want to make continual progress. I don't care if you go through me as a coach or someone else, or even do it by yourself, but never ever pay for just a diet plan. Your diet must change on a very regular basis. Not so much the foods you are eating or anything, but more so the amount you are eating. So if someone says they will do your diet for you but won't make any changes, you're just paying for the original diet, so don't do it. It's not going to work. You are not going to see good results from just a diet plan, and I'm going to explain to you why. So your original base diet for a male should contain at least 6 to 8 meals, and a female is usually containing around 4 to 6 meals. All right, so you might think eating 7 to 8 times a day is a lot and you can cram that amount of food into 3 or 4 meals, but you don't want to do that. Eating on a more frequent basis is the very step in dropping fat, and probably the most important step because it kickstarts the entire process. I want you to think of it like this. If you're eating 3 times a day, you eat 1 meal, your body processes that. 4 hours later, you eat another meal, your body processes that. 4 hours later, you eat another meal and your body processes that. So for the entire day, your body is only processing food and sending the nutrients from the food you are eating where they need to go for 3 times a day. Now compare that to if you're eating, let's say, 7 meals a day. Your body has to process food on 7 different occasions. It is working in overdrive to send those nutrients to where they need to go. You are feeding your muscles good quality foods constantly throughout the day. Your body is going to start performing like a fine-tuned machine. It's going to be functioning at its best all the time. Your muscles are being fed good quality nutrients throughout the entire day, and this is literally the one way to increase the speed of your metabolism. Okay, it's the only way to increase the speed of your metabolism by increasing the amount of meals you're consuming on a daily basis. When you are putting together your base diet, which I teach you in how to do in my video Protein, Carbs and Fats, you want to be eating, for guys, let's say 7 meals a day, and females 5 meals a day. This is your number one priority when dieting for fat loss. The more frequently you are eating, the faster your metabolism is going to become, the easier it is going to be for you to drop body fat. Every meal you have must contain protein. If you are having a meal with protein, carbs and fats, all good, it's a productive muscle building meal. If you have a meal with just carbs and fats, it's a waste of your time. It's not going to have any benefit at all on your body because it does not contain protein. Every single one of those 7 meals you consume on a day-to-day basis must contain protein. Everything I do and everything I know is basically self-taught, and the way I learn is by trying methods on myself. Obviously, I've worked with people and all that and have had guidance over the years, but the only way you are really going to know if something works on you is to try it yourself and make your own decision. The way I diet and the way I'm about to explain to you how to drop fat through food makes perfect sense, logically. And that's why I use this method for myself and the thousands of clients I've helped to get into incredible shape. So logic is the underlying formula in everything that we do. It comes to building muscle, dropping fat, which you will come to understand as you watch more of my videos. Everything you do needs to make sense. So when you are dieting to lose fat, it needs to be for a set period of time. The reason I do a 16-week program is because cutting for 16 weeks is more than enough time to drop a large amount of body fat. You can drop the fat at a very good pace, and you don't have to do anything too drastic that may cause you to lose any muscle mass. The reason I also recommend cutting for 16 weeks is because you can't cut forever. You will run yourself into the ground. So the process I'm about to explain to you is how I would cut and get rid of as much fat as I can whilst maintaining all my muscle mass over a 16-week period. Losing fat's very easy, but you need to do it properly. Losing muscle is the absolute worst case scenario. So here it is. Okay, 7 meals for a guy, 5 meals for a female. In all 7 meals, you want to have protein and carbs, and 2 of those 7 meals you want to contain good quality fats, but what we are going to be focusing on mostly is our carb intake. When I'm dieting, my protein and my fats stay the same throughout the entire process. The carbohydrates are the only variable that changes when it comes to dieting for fat loss. Some people do increase the fats as the carbs get cut, but I personally believe you should be on a good amount of fats from the very start anyway, and you shouldn't need to increase them. So we are going to be focusing on the carb intake. When you start dieting, you have protein in all 7 meals and you have carbs in all 7 meals, and the fats stay the same from start to finish. In week 1 of the cut, you are on the absolute maximum amount of food you will be eating for this 16-week period. So you will not be dropping any fat from this. This is the maximum amount of food you'll be eating for 16 weeks. So this is week 1. You need to let your body get used to a high amount of food. That's very important, because if you start on a minimal amount of food, what food would you have to cut from your diet to drop body fat? You've got nowhere to go. If you want to get leaner, you need to be cutting food from your diet on a regular basis. You need to get your body used to a high amount of food that it can handle, and you eat that amount for, let's say, 2 weeks to start with. You want your body to get used to that amount of food, so it's functioning on that amount of food. You need to let your body weight stabilize on that amount of food, and your metabolism is going to be lightning fast now, as you've been eating 7 meals a day for 14 days with carbs in all 7 meals, which means now you can start your process of fat loss. Once your body weight has stabilized on your original base diet, the next week you're going to cut carbs from one of those meals. After you cut carbs from one of your meals, you might drop, for example, 1 kilo. Then the next week you add in an hour's cardio. You might drop another kilo. Then the week after you cut carbs from another meal. Now you're starting to drop, another 500 grams. Then the week after you add in another hour's cardio on top of your training program, and you're gonna drop another kilo. So can you see where I'm going? You follow this gradual carb cutting process until you've cut carbs from every meal except your post-workout meal. It is calculated and very accurate and an effective process. Each week into the cut, you cut your carbs from one meal, then the week after that, you add in an hour's cardio. So cut carbs from 1 meal, add in an hour's cardio, and so on all the way to week 16. You should never cut your post-workout carbs though, because that is when you run the risk of losing any muscle. You can cut all your carbs you need to gradually over a lengthy period, but you must keep your post-workout carbs in so your muscles still get the chance to recover and be replenished with glycogen, and they won't deteriorate. The best way to lose fat is to do it gradually. If you cut all your carbs in 1 or 2 weeks, your body will drop weight very fast, 2 to 3 kilos in a week, but then your body will become accustomed to that amount of food. You'll stop losing weight, you'll have very little energy, and you'll plateau and stop losing fat. You need to cut your carb intake gradually. I know waiting is a pain and we all want to look good right now. Trust me, I go through this battle all the time, but by going through the correct process, it's going to make a huge difference to the end result. If you cut your carb intake gradually, you will continue to lose fat throughout the entire 16-week period, and you will not plateau. You will maintain all your muscles as well and have a good amount of energy for majority of the process. However, as you can see, after about 10 weeks or so of increasing cardio and cutting carbs, your carb intake is going to get pretty low and your cardio is going to start to get pretty high. So the further you get into your cut the further you get into your cut, the better your results are going to be. After about 4 or 5 weeks of cutting, you will get so hooked on the results, and each week you are just going to get leaner and leaner by gradually cutting the carbs 1 meal at a time on a weekly to fortnightly basis. This process is guaranteed to work. It's not just a fad. It's not just something I will tell you to do if I didn't think it was going to work. I like to see it as well as an intelligent, logical process that makes perfect sense to maximize the amount of fat one person can lose over a 16-week period of time whilst maintaining muscle mass. The risk of losing muscle going through this process is basically null, and the chances of building is also very high because of the high carb intake at the start of the month of that cut. One thing I need to mention is the importance of being consistent. If you are missing meals and cheating your diet and missing workouts and stuff like that, this is going to affect the fat loss process, obviously. Your body won't be used to the same amount of food, and then, when you cut those carbs, it's not going to work. If you are eating the same amount of food on a daily basis and weekly basis, nailing it every week, then you cut those carbs, increase the cardio gradually, it makes perfect sense that the fat is just going to fall right off. But you need to be consistent. Cutting carbs and increasing cardio over a long period of time is going to result in consistent fat loss throughout the entire period. I have one cheat meal every week, which you should do as well, just to keep you sane and give you some form of enjoyment throughout, through food. But the key to this whole process working is dedication and consistency. You must get your meals in and must get your workouts done every day. I actually forgot to mention that when starting the card is actually a great time to build muscle. The reason I prefer this method over every other method is that the risk of losing muscle is extremely low, and the chances of even building muscle and dropping fat at the same time is quite high. When you are on 7 meals a day, all of them containing carbs, you are definitely going to build muscle, and this is actually how you build muscle and drop body fat at the same time, by following this process. A lot of the time, the weight on the scale won't move for the first 4 or 5 weeks because the carbs are actually building muscle at that time whilst you're dropping fat. If you are losing fat and building muscle, your weight tends to stay the same because they counteract each other, and this is why you cannot use the scales, as a KPI to measure your results. After you've successfully completed the 16-week fat loss period, not only will you have more muscle mass because you're on such high carb intake, but you have just completed the correct process in dropping fat. So the end result, most of the time, actually results in you having a much better shape, more muscle mass, and obviously you'll be a lot leaner because that was our primary focus. I promise you, if you do this properly, you stay dedicated and you bust, your ass off in the gym, in 16 weeks time, you'll be in the best shape of your life. All right, I'm not being arrogant here. I'm just being honest. 100% success rate if you do it properly. Losing fat is so simple when you think about it in a logical process. The hardest part of the process is actually staying dedicated and motivated for that 16 weeks. But like I said, suck it up for the first 4 or 5 weeks. Once the fat loss is, it's going to be a little slow, but after that, from 5 to 6 weeks onwards, you're going to get so hooked on the changes you are seeing in the mirror. You will see it out to the end, I'm telling you now, and you're going to look incredible. You have my word. If you still have more fat to lose after your first 16-week cut, reverse diet correctly, which I teach you in how to diet in my video, Reverse Dieting, and start the process again. Gradually add the carbs back into your diet, and each time you complete it, you will just get better and better. Think of it like this: if you started the process now and started doing things properly now, imagine how good you are going to look in exactly 1 year's time.